Welcome back, and welcome to a brand new series on the Midnyte Society. I love CreepyPasta and recently found a ton of MicroPasta stories, so make sure you subscribe to catch the rest of the series and much more creepy content. Now let's jump into part 1. In the middle of England, there's a farm owned by a man called John Glass. If you're lucky enough to find this farm, John will happily take you to see his animals and will treat you with utter kindness. He will keep you there until nightfall, when he will insist that you must stay over and drive back in the morning. Not wanting to disrespect this old man, you will agree and settle down for the night in a cozy room. In the morning, you'll wake up on a mattressless bed. The room will be dirty, smelly, and seem to be old. The rest of the farm will too, with a few rotting animal carcasses in the fields. There will be no sounds, except for the sound of faint squeaking. You will find that it's coming from a run-down barn, and if you dare peek inside, you will see yourself bound and gagged. You will watch John Glass torture you in ways you couldn't even imagine. Then you will wake up in your own bed with no memories of the day before. You will search for an abandoned farm, and as soon as you see it, you will decide to move there and renovate it. You will forget about your old life. A year later, an unsuspecting traveler will come to your farm. You will happily take them to see your animals and treat them with utter kindness. The teacher strode across the room looking out at her class. And so, with the invention of Concordance 5, true peace finally enveloped the world, she said with a serene smile. For 100 years we have lived without conflict. The dream of world peace that so many strove for before is ours. A young man in the front row frowned and raised his hand. Can you truly define peace as the absence of conflict? He asked. If people are not allowed to disagree, they are not at peace. They live in constant fear. She cocked her head, eyes narrowing. And so you disagree with me, then? The young man nodded automatically. Yes, he said. And then his eyes widened. No, The veins in his throat seemed to bulge and twist as his hands grasped at his neck. He sputtered for a few moments and then fell on his desk. The teacher smiled gratefully at the class monitor as he removed the body from the chair. Version 5 is 10 times faster than version 4, leaving no time for argument, which is truly key, she continued. There was a meaty thump outside the door, but no one paid it any heed. The janitors would have everything cleaned up before the bell rang, and thus peace reigned over the classroom. Try this. Turn off the music. Turn off the TV. If you have to, turn off the computer. Then go into another room and sit in total silence. Do you hear that? That ringing? People say it's your brain making up a sound to explain the silence. But people lied. I can't tell you what's making that sound, but whatever it is, you don't want to meet it. It is trying to break through, force its way into our plane of existence. Now try this. Repeat the first steps. Turn everything off. This time, turn the lights off too. Still hear the ringing? You better hope so. If you don't, it's because they have finally managed to break through. Break through and into your head. And no amount of running will save you. There was a couple from Texas who were planning a weekend trip across the Mexican border for a shopping spree. At the last minute, their babysitter canceled, so they had to bring their 2-year-old son along with them. They'd been across the border for about an hour when the baby got free and ran around the corner. The father tried to find him, but he'd disappeared. The mother got a police officer, who told her to go to the gate and wait. Not really understanding the instructions, she did as she was told. About 45 minutes later, a man approached the border carrying the boy. The mother ran to him, grateful that he had been found. When the man realized it was the boy's mother, he dropped him and ran. The police were waiting for him. The boy was dead, and in less than the 45 minutes he was missing, he had been cut open, all of his organs removed, and his body stuffed with cocaine. The man was going to carry him across the border as if he were asleep. I could feel the heat raging behind the slowly melting doors of the burning house. I coughed, the smoke seeping through the cracks of the doors. I held her in my arms, her body limp but not lifeless. I could hear her shallow breathing, and her eyes were fighting to open. I looked around. The flames were ready to engulf us on the other side of the door. I just knew it. I had to act fast. I wasn't sure how quickly they'd get us. Every second ticked in my head, pressuring me. I looked down at the sweet girl again, who looked at me for a second, but her emotion was difficult to read through the smoke. It hurt my lungs. I really couldn't breathe. Time was still ticking. I had to do something. So I did. I opened the door and dropped the girl into the flames. As I said, I wasn't sure how quickly they'd get us. I had to burn the evidence. "Damn, nice catch," my friend Sandra said to me as I popped open the beer that she threw to me. "Nice throw. Almost gave me a black eye," I replied, taking a big gulp. She snorted and sat down next to me in an old lawn chair she pulled out of her mom's storage house. She sighed, ran her fingers through her long, sand-colored hair, and leaned back in the chair. "Oh well," she mumbled, closing her eyes. "Yeah," I said, looking up at the sky. "When's it supposed to happen?" "Few minutes." "People aren't really freaking out. They're just sitting out here like us, waiting for it." "What good would freaking out do?" "Yeah," I agreed. "You call your mom?" she asked, and I nodded. "She said she won't be able to make it in time, and she loves me." "You call yours?" "Yeah, said she loves me and shit too. Shit people usually say before they know they're about to die." "You don't think she meant it?" "Hell no. But it was nice to hear her say it, I guess," she said, smiling at me. Stubborn as always. I smiled back. "What do you think's going to happen after this?" I asked. She shrugged. "We'll just be dead. There isn't anything after this," she said. I looked over at Sandra's next-door neighbors, an old couple looking to be in their 80s. They were kissing each other on the cheek and smiling, most likely saying "I love you." "So everything was for nothing?" "Not necessarily," Sandra said, grabbing my hand. I looked over at her. I never noticed how beautiful her smile was, how bright her light blue eyes were, and they were only getting brighter and even more beautiful as we moved closer and closer towards the sun. "At least we're together." "Like always," I replied, smiling. One last smile, one last touch, before disintegrating into nothing from the heat of the sun. My daughter Daisy woke me around 11:50 last night. My wife and I had picked her up from her friend Sally's birthday party, brought her home, and put her to bed. My wife went into the bedroom to read while I fell asleep watching the Braves game. "Daddy," Daisy whispered, tugging my shirt sleeve, "guess how old I'm going to be next month." I smiled at her. "I don't know, sweetie," I said as I slipped on my glasses. "How old?" She giggled and held up 4 fingers. It's 7:30 a.m. now. My wife and I have been up with her for almost 8 hours. She still refuses to tell us where she got them. Whenever we visit my grandpa's house, I always look at the old photo albums. I've been doing it since I was 11. I'm 15 now. I always find them strangely intriguing. My whole family history contained within these archives. There are wedding albums, vacation albums, holiday albums, all kinds of albums. I especially like seeing what my aunts and uncles looked like before I was born. My favorite ones, however, are the ones that date back even further, like the ones that contain my grandpa's old army photos, and the ones from when he was a kid. I've always been a history buff. But my favorite one of all is also the oldest. This one has pictures from the 1870s all the way up to the 1890s. Photography for special occasions was obviously a lot more formal back then. In every photo, the subject is dressed in his or her Sunday best. The subject is almost always alone. He or she is always sitting, and generally they look very uncomfortable. One of them, the teenage girl with the missing arm, I think I might be starting to develop a little crush on, which is kind of screwed up considering she may very well be my great-great-aunt or something. Back in the 19th century, I guess you weren't allowed to smile for photos. They all have this blank look on their face. And the makeup doesn't help either, makes them look rather pale. Another thing I noticed? As far as I can tell, no subject ever appears twice in the album. The flames are in full force now, glasses shattering from the heat generated by this inferno. Even the charred wood is beginning to splinter, unable to withstand the weight of the 2nd and 3rd floors above. You know, it's fires like these that made me want to become a fireman. To see raging death dance across the floors, walls, and ceilings is an incredibly beautiful and mystical sight. Don't you agree? With each person I pulled out of this burning tomb, I saw more and more flashes of cameras from my fans and admirers. It feels incredible to be loved and honored like a hero. It's intoxicating even. I can't get enough of it. That's why I keep going into the jaws of death to save these irrelevant people. People like you. What they don't know is that I already know how the flame is going to spread, and I know where it's safe and where it's not. That's why I started the fire there, and over there. Unfortunately for you, I can't pull you from this beautiful place. You're the last one in the building. Well, besides me. My fans tend to question how dangerous fires like these can be if no one dies within them. That's why I must leave you here. My people must know how much danger I put myself in. The adoration is more sincere this way. You understand, don't you? Look, here's some advice for you, my friend. Inhale the smoke. Trust me when I say that's much better than the alternative. Okay then. See you after the cinders die out. Take a moment to think. Put down your book, or your phone, or your laptop. Look around you. Do you have a light on? Probably. Are you frightened of the dark? Try it. Go to a cupboard, close the door, turn off the lights. Is it dark enough? Dark enough that you can't see your hand before your eyes? Dark enough that you're beginning to feel a chill run up your spine? You may say that you don't fear the dark, but you'll find that you do. You're terrified at the unknown, at what lies lurking just out of sight. In some ways, it would be a release to see the sharp claw, hear the monstrous chuckle, feel the surge of agony as it rips through you. At least that way you'd know it's really there, and not just your imagination. But for now you're stuck there, in the dark. Is this how people become monsters? Do shadows creep into their soul? Or is it just this everlasting, never-ending darkness that consumes them, that eats away at them, that fills them again full of murder and bloodshed and strife? Let's find out. Wait in the darkness and find out, and hope that it doesn't consume you. I sit up with a jolt, disoriented. If it weren't for the sensation of my eyelids coming together to shield my eyes, I would not be able to determine whether they were open or not. The inky blackness presses in from all angles, suffocating me. You'd think after all the time I've spent trapped in this murky prison I'd have adjusted. No, it's still quite a shock to be released from the depths of unconsciousness, only to be greeted by an infinite plane of shadows. I glance around, looking for something, some object from long ago that will reassure me. I need to know that some of my old world still remains. Nothing. I'm alone. A white light flashes to the left of my vision, if it can be called that. I ignore it. I've come to realize that its only purpose is to generate hope of this blanket of soot lifting. I hear a creak, a door opening. Kath, you'd better get up. We're leaving for Granddad's house in about an hour. Start getting ready, okay? I sigh. Yeah, all right. Oh, and your cane and shades are in the kitchen, near the birdcage. I sigh again. At 12:17 a.m. on any given night arises the opportunity to awaken an alternate soul. The most common way of viewing them? Through a mirror. It is through said medium that the process must take place. Begin at exactly midnight. By no light but that of a single candle, stand before the selected mirror. For 10 minutes you must concentrate in silence, focused entirely on your reflection. Do not look away from the eyes, for it will be interpreted as weakness and you will be overcome. After 10 minutes have passed, you must draw blood to smear in a line across the eyes of your reflection. Doing so will blind it, and you will watch as your own features begin to warp. Slowly, gradually, they will mutate into a frightening creature, one beyond the comprehension of those who've not experienced it. You must not look away through the entirety of the change. Soon the writhing movements of the image will cease. By now, an echoing, inhuman sound will resound all around you. The creature will begin to ease towards the mirror's glass. You must keep watching as it approaches. If you do not extinguish the candle at exactly 12:17, the creature will escape. Be warned. Should you succeed, through any polished surface, be it mirror, wood, or window, Your reflection will always be watching. He was walking to his car to check the windows. He knew a storm was approaching, but as he reached the car, it clicked as it does when it's been recently driven. He hasn't left since yesterday. Though this startled him, he assumed it was just his mind playing tricks. Still a bit alarmed, he quickly made his way back to his house, attempting to show no fear. A few minutes later, he heard the rain hitting the windows of his house. He looked at the clock. It read 12:19. He didn't feel like sleeping, so he went to his computer and started to write. But as he sat, he remembered he left his phone in the car. Reluctantly, he returned to the car. It was still clicking. As he was searching the car, he looked up to see that the window he had just shut had been opened again. He closed it and rushed back inside, feeling uneasy as he sat. He turned his phone on and saw that the time was now 11:56. Assuming it had somehow been changed, he looked at the clock that he swore read 12:19 10 minutes earlier, only to see that it also said 11:56. He was confused, but still attempting to pass all of this off as mind tricks. He began to believe he was just tired. Who knows? Maybe he was. But none of that matters. He's still dead. Well, he was. And he will be. And that's the first half of the letter A. Which of the first 13 stories was your favorite? Make sure to drop a comment below to let me know. I'll be releasing part 2 early next week, so make sure you subscribe and leave a like as well. Until next time, from the Midnyte Society, stay weird and stay wonderful.